G'day. Today you have been blessed with cat in the background. These are the kinds of things you see when I film outside of my filming room. So I really want to smash through some Paris Corner comparisons this week. I decided I would do kind of an old school video like how I used to do a first impression and a wear test head to head between Paris Corner's Care Pistachio and Kayali's Yum Pistachio Gelato. Now, if you're new to my channel and you have not seen these comparisons before, I like to do these videos in two parts. I do the initial spray, one on each hand of the original and the alleged dupe. I do a comparison off the initial spray and how it initially wears on the skin. For the second part, I step away for an hour or so and let it fully dry down, and then I come back and do an update on how it's smelling at that point. And usually that gives a pretty good indication of how a fragrance is going to wear throughout the day if you give it like an hour or two. So is Paris Corner's Care Pistachio a dupe of Kayali's Yum Pistachio Gelato? Is this another banger Middle Eastern fragrance? Is this helping in the algorithm? I don't know. All right, before we dive into the comparison, let's quickly go over notes. So in Kayali's Yum Pistachio Gelato, on the initial spray, you've got bergamot pistachio gelato, obviously, hazelnut, you've got sweet rum, cardamom. In the heart, you've got geranium, white peony, lily of the valley, jasmine, raspberry, white peach, and pear. In the base, you've got that whipped cream, marshmallow, cotton candy, Turkish delight accord, cocoa, cedarwood, sandalwood, tonka. So lots of creamy, fluffy notes, lots of gourmand notes in the base. Obviously, you've got the pistachio gelato. And for Paris Corner's version, they claim to have basically the exact same notes from what I can see. But of course, notes don't tell the whole story. Let's see how they actually smell. So on my left, I'm going to spray Kayali's Yum Pistachio. I'm spraying out of the sample, so it's kind of hard to get a good spray in there. Immediately, I smell the sweet rum. It's a really big blast of a fluffy sweet rum. I really get a lot of those fluffy base notes in there, like that whipped cream, the marshmallow. As it starts to dry, the fruitiness and that nuttiness kicks in. Now I'm getting a real good hit of that creamy, that real nutty, creamy pistachio. Some sweetness from the cotton candy and the fruit. I mean, you've got pear, you've got peach, you've got raspberry in there. It's not overwhelming. It's letting the pistachio shine here. This truly is a pistachio gourmand bomb. There is nothing bitter in here off the initial spray. Even the rum in here is very, very sweet. As it dries down a little bit, I get a lot more of that dense creaminess. So more of that tonka bean kicks in. You get just a little bit of a bite and a spice. So you've got cocoa in there. You've got a slight little bit of bitterness. You've got tonka bean, which is very full and thick, but also there's a little bit of a bite, which really goes well with the rum. Still a lot of nuttiness. That pistachio is still very prominent, still very sweet, incredibly sweet and gourmand. Very beautiful fragrance. Okay, let's spray Care Pistachio on this arm. Now this is a heavier atomizer in this one, so just keeping that in mind. So right away off initial spray, the main difference that I can tell in Paris Corner's version is the florals. I feel like the florals are much stronger. I'm getting more of a heavy jasmine and lily of the valley, and it's a bit heavier on the fruit as well. Maybe a little more of a peach is popping through there. Still incredibly nutty and gourmand. Maybe not quite as fluffy and creamy. It's just ever so slightly more fruity and floral. I feel like the fruit in the initial spray of Paris Corner's version is just a little bit more overwhelming. It kind of overshadows a lot of those creamy, fluffy notes in the base. And the pistachio itself, I feel like I didn't feel that with Kayali. Off the initial spray, I really got that heavy dose of rum and that really thick nuttiness from the pistachio. I still get that in Paris Corner's version, but it's just heavier on the florals, heavier on the fruit. Still a really beautiful fragrance, just maybe not as dense and heavy. It's just maybe a little bit lighter and a little bit crisper. Okay, I am going to step away now. I normally give about an hour or so, but if I feel like the fragrance hasn't really dried down or if it's still changing a great amount, maybe I'll wait a little bit longer, so we'll see. But at the moment it is 9:08, so I will be back a little after 10 p.m.
1 hour later.
All right, I am back. It's been almost an hour and a half or so. It's 10:34. There are a couple things that I've noticed as both scents were drying down. Both of these scents have changed in a way that I didn't expect. First of all, as for Kayali's Yum Pistachio, I noticed as it was really drying down, it was a lot more powdery than the initial spray. I didn't really notice much powderiness until it started to dry down, and it was still quite nutty, and that pistachio was still there, but it was very, very powdery, and any of that thick creaminess was pretty much gone. I noticed after about 40 minutes or so. Now that it's fully dried down, and once it hit the around an hour mark, it was a bit more bitter. A lot of that sweetness was gone. A lot of that thick sweetness had disappeared. It's mostly now a bitter, slightly nutty powderiness. Smelling it now, honestly, not a huge fan, if I'm being 100% honest. Now for Paris Corner, it's not the same. It's still more fruity. So on the initial spray, obviously I noticed that there was more of an emphasis on the fruit in Paris Corner's version. Even the florals I noticed after the dry down in Kayali's was stronger. Paris Corner's was a lot fruitier. And I think that works well for when it dries down. I'm not getting as much of that bitterness like I do in Kayali's. There is a bit of a waxiness that I can smell on the dry down. So the nuttiness isn't coming across powdery. It's coming across more waxy. So there is a slightly sweet, nutty waxiness from Paris Corner's version. As for longevity, I smell them both pretty equally. I can show you the sample of Kayali that I have. This is my Yum Pistachio juice in my sample. Didn't last as strongly as I would have hoped. Here's my Paris Corner juice. Definitely not the same color. It's a lot lighter. Now this decant is from a bottle that had been opened for a couple of months for what it's worth. Again, lasting power I'm finding currently to be pretty similar. Paris Corners ended up being a little waxier, a little bit sweeter from the fruit, whereas Kayali's, definitely a bitterness that wasn't there before, a bitter, powdery pistachio. To be honest, not super impressed with the projection of both of these. Obviously, this is just sprayed on the skin. They could wear differently in combination with clothing, so sprayed on skin and clothing. You're probably going to get better longevity as well, but this is just a test on skin with no other products on. I will continue to test Paris Corner's version, of course. I'll see if I can squeeze it in before my end of the month video. If you guys aren't familiar with my channel, I like to, at the end of the month, just touch on every fragrance I've spoken about in that month and give you any updates after wearing them more. So if you are interested in an update on these fragrances, I highly recommend that you subscribe. I hope this video was helpful. Listen, I already know people are going to mention Affection by Lattafa. That is one that I would love to get my hands on. It's a little more expensive, unfortunately, especially down here, but it is on my radar. It's on my list. If you guys have tried either of these or both, let me know what you think. Do you agree with my assessment? I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you so much for watching, and you will see me in the next one.